Thank you for coming this early morning. And I'm going to talk about viewers. But before, I actually want to thank organizers again. And yeah, let's give applause to them again. So that's an honor for me to open this conference and share this stage with some awesome Ruby committers, which I guess will come lately. And yeah, so for those who don't know me, I guess most of you don't know me. I'm Ivan Shamatov, a Ruby developer. And I have to say that, disclaimer, that English is not my native language. So, but I found out that the good rule of thumb to give talk in English here, and that's why I have to warn you. That's my first time experience of that kind. So if you see me slow poking, that's absolutely fine. That's not because of some language problems, because I am not so fast in Russian too. Not so fast that Ruby speed is fine for me, absolutely. Okay, but anyway, you can interact me, and I encourage you to ask me any question at any point. Just lift up your leg. So yeah, 1 minute passed. 39 left. So we are going to talk about viewer, and I guess most of us came to Ruby world through Rails, and so that's why we are going to look at it through Rails context. And have you ever thought that Rails is not actually MVC framework, it's MTC? And MTC stands for Model Template Controller, actually. And by saying view, well, in MVC, we are talking about templates. That's easy to prove. I guess most of you saw code like that. So there is a model, some resource, and you can instantiate it. And I guess some of you could debug Rails and actually instantiate controllers and call index. So yeah, something like that. But I'm sure not all of us can see something like that. For example, resource view, which inherits from application view, which in its order inherits from action view. And yeah, most of the time we see something like that, right? So yeah. As you may know, MVC paradigm was first appeared in Steve Barbeck paper for Smalltalk that called How to Use Model V Controller, and that was for Smalltalk 80 version 2, because it was implemented inside framework. And those times we don't have some browser to execute, manipulate our HTML output and interpret it. View itself was like, I guess, running a loop, which asks for new state, new data from controllers, and render itself all the time. So actually, in our case, browser is giving us a viewer. And when we are talking about modern front-end frameworks, that's usually like, we operate with data and like React or maybe Vue, and it renders itself all the time, asking for new state. So yeah, that's real Vue, in my opinion. But back to our backend. What we've got So what's the point? Okay, for example, we actually don't have viewer, as I said that. You can disagree with it, absolutely. But anyway, what's the problem with that? I guess all of you start creating some application from scratch, and during the time, code evolves. And in Rails and using Ruby, we've got lots of ways to decompose our logic using services and some plain Ruby objects and so on. But our template are growing, and that's easily to mess up everything in Ruby templates. So during the project is evolving, your templates evolves too. So the first problem, really hard to read. Hard to read is a problem, and not because you don't understand, because you are using markup. So the first solution would be just to remove some unused markup and clean up it with, for example, HAML or Slim. So I guess most of you use HAML or Slim to render templates. Okay, but then you got problem of repeating in common paths inside your views, templates, and Rails gives us partials. And so you can show common paths inside your partials. Well, you move your common paths in partials and share it too. And you can even remove some unnecessary iterations like passing posts to collections. My example is about blogging post application. So, and after that, you add some logic inside views. And that logic growing too. And I guess most of you saw indeed in your projects some scenario like if you're checking if current user is logged in, and you should show its name and link to sign out and something in another case, right? And you start to move everything in helpers, and you start to make helpers more and more and share global namespace, and that's really easy to redefine your helpers. So what's the problem then? You start using helpers inside helpers and helpers inside helpers and so on. And you understand that you are trying to create some kind of DSL that's really hard to debug. So, yeah, and of course we've got already some great minds to give us some kind of DSL for that. For example, Arbre, which was moved out from ActiveAdmin. Arbre makes easy to generate HTML directly in Ruby. And the purpose of Arbre is to leave the view as Ruby object as long as it's possible. And at the end, you just make two string to S, and you've got some HTML output. That's not really funny. And here are some solutions for that. You want to make some specific logic for like domain logic for actual object. And the simplest way is just to add presenters, where you move your view code when you start that to understand that there are lots of view rendering paths in your model, inside your model. you have to move that to presenters. And here's a quick solution for that. We just make a simple object, and we wrap it with, we wrap our resource with that object and present it to our template, in our template. So, as nobody said, I really read this code. I guess you are not looking at code at all. So how can we use that? Because we made it presenter from inherited from simple delegator. We've got post object, which is just get object. So we can operate with it, and we can ask for its attributes. So that's model attributes, and get in a view. But for collections, we have to map each object, and wrap each object and map it. So the problem that we have to iterate through all objects already in controller, not even using it in template. But that simplifies a view, really simplifies that. Of course, we already have some kind of solution for that. And gem dropper, which I guess most of you use. Well, lift up your hand if you are using dropper. Awesome. So gem dropper give us decorators view models, as it said. But they recommend to call our decorator as, for example, for research post, it would be post decorator. And we've got delegation inside, and we've got helpers inside, so we don't have to include Rails helpers like link to manually. And the object can be, the resource we are wrapping can be accessed via object method. So, what do you think about decorators and presenters versus presenters? In my opinion, what droppers do is actually not a decorator at all, because usually you use decorator in all parts of your application just to add some functionality to object. You can decorate by, as it's said in documentation, well, as it's said in Gov, you can decorate your decorators nested, but Draper doesn't give any kind of functionality like that. So for me, sorry. For me, that's just a presenter, and I have to use some kind of logic to add. So, for example, if I want to decorate a collection, I have to manually write post presenter decorate collection, because I'm not following convention of names for Draper. So, yeah, I made a post presenter inherited from decorated Draper decorator, and for each part I have to call manually decorate this object, please. Yeah, but if you use Draper as it says in documentation, you have some easy accessed methods for collections and for objects itself. You just call decorate, and that's all. and you can use all these helpers, helper methods, which is in your presenter actually. On the other side, have you ever heard about Sales? Yeah, okay. So Sales is a great product from Trailblazer, and it does not wrap object. Well, it's actually a wrap object, but it doesn't delegate all the methods to your attributes. It gives a property interface to communicate with your properties of an object. And the other great thing, that's not just a presenter or view model, as Draper said, well, view model. That's a real component, in my opinion. And that's why I'm telling you that, because it have its own templates inside. And if you use, for example, post, you can render it differently for different part of your application. And that's really awesome. And more than that, you have real inheritance there. For example, if you are making some kind of Tumblr application and you've got different types of posts, and well, actually, you have to render them differently. That's not like STI or just inheritance on a model level. That's inheritance on presentation level. So you can just inherit from your post cell and add some presentation functionality inside your app. Yeah. And if you start to dig and use cells often, you start to see your application like components. And at that moment, you start to understand that, well, I have not wrap only resource with cells, but I can wrap anything in my view with a cell. For example, I have header with some menus inside, and that menus are not controller specific. We're taking some data outside of database inside component and render, for example, navigation or menu sidebar, and your layout is like composition of cells. Yeah, and your structure become like that. So you are thinking in viewer, you're thinking like pages, a home page, and I'm going to render some posts, and I have to render a slider there, and yeah, of course I have some slides that I have to take from database and show them, but I move all this logic outside of controller. So preparing data is not inside controller, but inside cell. And okay, and it's simple to test. At the end, it just make call, which returns some HTML. And testing cells and actually presenters are really easy, because you just have to pass some data and see are there any HTML inside. Okay. Have you ever used View? Anybody? Yeah, awesome. 3. Okay. 4. View, well, Dry is a collection of gems, and they give simple objects. to operate with. And actually, what I'm showing you is implementation of PostView, which I'm going to use inside Rails, because PostView will just return HTML, and I can easily render it inside my controller. Well, I have to render it inline because it's returning HTML, but that's not a problem for me. And you have real PostView object, which you can test, and Drive View gives you access to properties you have passed via exposure. If we are not talking about HTML, that kind of, I guess, interface we can see in Grape-entities. So you've got your resource and you've got exposures. Well, you expose your properties, and maybe you add some new properties which are not tightly coupled with your attributes. So, okay. Yeah, and I have templates here too. So I'm configuring my PostView and saying that template will be the same path where is a view, and it will be called PostView. So inside our controller, we are going to get some posts, create view instance, and just path them to the view. Hanami. Are there any evangelists of Hanami here? No? Okay. Well, actually, I have to admit that that was tough for me. Tough to call this view inside of Rails, and that was a problem. Well, actually, because view and controller in Hanami are so tightly coupled, that's really tough to test. But I found some use cases in specs, and they are telling us that we just need to get some exposures, what we are going to show in our template, then get template, and render that view. So, yeah, something like that, but I've got problems with that. Well, but let's see what's going on here. And that is common to Drive View too. We are not thinking about wrapping resources. We are talking about making object for a view for current page, actually. So we are making object for index. Like in Rails, we've got action index. In Hanami, we are getting this index. So, yeah. That was fast. That's all, folks.
Thank you. Any questions? Come on, don't be shy. Here we go. 1 second.
Okay, thank you. My question is, what is the solution for original problem of big and hard to read complex views with all those proposals? Because they just add additional layer of complexity and abstraction. And if I still use the same code in my view, I just write it differently and adapt to some kind of template engines or whatever tools we see here. But how the original problem of complex view is solved?
Well, The solution would be like a mixture of these techniques you can use inside your application. And when you are talking about adding some complexity, you have to also think about your decoupling parts. And yeah, you add some abstractions, but each abstraction will answer only one question, yeah. Did I answer? Yeah, no? Some kind of, okay. Yeah, we can talk after that again. Yeah.
In Russian, actually. Any other questions? 3, 2, 1. Last chance. One more question. Here we go.
Yeah, just nobody want to ask. I want to. So, in your projects, okay, we know now that most of modern projects are using some kind of JavaScript to render view and stuff like that. But as I understand, you have projects with original Rails views. So, what is your what you actually using from all those proposals? Like I count 5 or something like this. So, what is your favorite one from those examples?
Well, in projects I'm working right now, we are more about API, but I usually use presenters. Well, I use them all the time. Okay. So moving some logic out of templates and from model, well, I'm talking about slim models here inside presenters.
All right. We have a new question. Here we go.
Hi, thank you for your talk. My question is, would you use views like cells or dry views for JSON templates, for JBuilder templates, or I don't know what people use for JSON templates?
Okay, well, cell allow you to add any type of markup inside, but I'm not sure that Drive View allow you to do that. As I understand, they're just rendering HTML inside. Would I use? No, I like Grape.
Great. We have one last question. Yeah, here we go.
Thank you. It seems like these techniques will add lots of overhead. So what's about performance?
Performance. Well, that's a tough question, because usually you forgot even about n+1 queries. But as you may understand, that you are just rendering string, and well, performance issues are not about Rails, in my opinion, and the problem the problem of DevOps. Yeah, you can throw a stone if you don't think the same way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I know it was Ivan was a little nervous about his language, so let's applause and thank him for his talk.
Yeah, thank you guys.